All right, well, let's start the mythology and art panel then. My name is Tiffany Toland-Scott, and I'm the artist guest of honor this year. And why don't you two introduce yourselves? Melissa, do you want to go first?
My name's Melissa Gay. I've been the artist guest of honor and the special guest at LibertyCon, and I love you, LibertyCon. Miss you. And I do mostly art for role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games. I also do book cover art and interior illustrations for books, some scientific illustration and new age illustration. So it's a mixed bag from me, but I love what I do, and I hope that you do too. Over to you, Amanda.
I'm Amanda Makepeace, and I'm a fantasy and science fiction illustrator. I do a little bit of everything, literally everything. I'm running my own Patreon as well at the moment that kind of focuses more on kind of nature and mystical art. But I do book covers, and I've done some gaming illustration. I really love working in books more than anything else. And I've been coming to LibertyCon. Gosh, I don't know how long I've been coming to LibertyCon now. It's been a few years. I miss everybody there. Chattanooga's like a second home. So, yeah.
Well, how about if we start with how does mythology influence your art? Any takers?
I guess I can start. I actually have a degree in anthropology. I was an art student for about a year and didn't really learn a whole lot. And decided to just like embark on my own path. So mythology was built into my undergraduate education. And I feel really blessed by that. I mean, there's a lot that I have learned since graduating all those years ago. But it does play a role, even in, I think, subtle ways. I'm often looking to, stories, the stories that make us who we are, human and culture, and I do weave those into my paintings. Sometimes literally, sometimes it's more subtle. I'm trying to think about one piece in particular. Autumn Waters. I have a thing for guardians, different types of guardians of rivers and forests, and so that's kind of been a theme that keeps reappearing in my art, whether it's painting or drawing. I like some of the ancient mythology, but I also like Greek mythology and Native American mythology. Yeah, I like it all. I don't know if I answered that question at all, but it is something that I think about a lot. And I'll often, when I'm starting a piece, it's usually sparked, if there's going to be a strong mythological element, it's usually sparked by one particular thing. And then I tend to go and I just research and research and research. And then it just kind of grows from there. And sometimes I'll incorporate multiple mythologies and make my own new mythology, if that makes sense. Yeah.
It's funny that you should say that that guardians feature heavily in your work. I also find that like mythological tropes figure heavily in mine, and I think the one that I guess there's a couple that I keep coming back to, and one is sort of the seeker and the psychopomp.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's sort of like the person that guides you over the threshold into another reality. That is a big thing in my art. I think those sort of liminal spaces and thresholds, the very idea of, I guess, borders between one world and the next, that heavily in my art and in sort of my thinking about art as well. And I grew up reading mythology. My parents shoved books of mythology into my hands like as soon as I was able to read. That was like bedtime reading about like the Greek gods that did all their shenanigans. And I guess it was the Greek and Norse mythologies that I grew up with, and the tarot, but it gave me sort of a love and interest in the mythology and sort of religious culture of all cultures. You know, it's so interesting what we have sort of in commonality as well as the differences, and how we can sort of play with those differences and commonalities in order to evoke certain emotions in our artwork.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's really interesting how so many mythologies have areas where they overlap, even to a point where they'll depict something with nearly identical images, even though they might be on completely different continents.
Yeah, the collective consciousness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember. I'm getting old. I don't remember who coined that. But I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's real because, at the heart of mythology, it's about people trying to explain their place in the world and how the world works. And we're all human, and we're all on the same planet. So, it makes sense that, we would come up with the same ideas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only so many, as much as we like to believe that every one of us is unique, there's only so many different ways that these neural pathways up here can be forged, and they are forged in response to environmental stimuli. And we all feel the rain, we all feel cold, we all feel heat. We're all walking on the same earth. So yeah, of course there's going to be similarities for sure.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that when Melissa was talking about, or not Melissa, I'm sorry, Amanda was talking about overlapping mythologies and like creating your own out of them. I was just watching something earlier today and they were talking about these like they're like these like reliefs of like fish people, and they occur in like 12 different cultures around the world, and they all look like almost the same. Um
So
I don't
cool.
But they aren't
cool.
mermaids. They're like, they look like warriors with fish tails. I don't really know how to explain it.
Oh, that's so cool though. But I mean, if you believe the science, and here comes my anthropology degree, we all originated in one place on this planet, and the stories were passed down and spread and changed, but they were still passed down. So there's going to be things that are retained, I think. And then, I mean, you could go a step further too if you believe that, everything on this planet is connected. I mean, ecosystems, everything works together in a certain balance. And maybe that goes even deeper into that collective consciousness. Yeah, it's interesting to see, though, how things, are expressed in art and the similarities, even just symbols, basic symbols like spirals. And I mean, those are in every culture, just about. Yeah, it is fascinating stuff. And I guess, you know, I've always been keenly aware that I have a rich cultural background, with the Native American on my mother's side and the German on my father's side. So yeah, I enjoy looking at like the stories and histories of those places. And I guess, you know, for me, that's why I often sometimes try to combine them, because in combining them, it's me, because I'm a combination. I mean, we all are, a combination of different stories and mythologies and places, even down to just our everyday lives in our families, our immediate families. We are a combination of different mythologies. Sorry, I went like way into some tangent there, but anyway.
No, I like that.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's true. I think every human is sort of the sum of their mythologies, and it's
Yeah.
part of their past and their ancestral cultures, but part of it is sort of the mythologies that we make for ourselves to
Yeah.
make our lives make sense, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, it governs everything. It governs our relationships and how we adapt to things that happen in our lives, where we go. Yeah, I mean, it's even down on that little level, I think mythology plays a role.
There's a lot of mythology about where people come from too. Like, there's a specific myth about like Russians and Slavs, and there's another group that they were like three brothers and they all went different directions. And then there's like
Oh,
mythology
yeah.
about them being like represented by different birds or different animals, or yeah, it's interesting how people have used that to describe how they're related to each other in like ancient terms.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, how we spread out, you know, and yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah,
very,
the sort of the human diasporas of various places before instant communication was a thing, or even communication that you could get within the space of a year.
right.
And so it becomes just sort of that much more emotionally meaningful to know where your relatives are and where you came from, and to be able to make sense of that. Say, oh well, they're from this tribe, or this
Right.
this group of birds over here.
Well, and that's what it's all about, is making sense of things. So I think, you know, I mean, the same is true for art. When we make art, we're in a way making sense of something, making sense of a history, of a story, and how it might relate to us and how it might relate to the viewers who are looking at the art.
I agree with that, and I think that the people that buy your art or connect with your art are the people whose mythology you're speaking to, or
Right.
that you're telling. You know, it's like, oh, this is the story of me. I understand this. And I
Right.
think that's
Yeah.
a beautiful thing to happen.
So here's a question. Do you think that fantasy and sci-fi art would look the way that it does if it wasn't influenced by mythology?
Most definitely not. I mean, I think that we all sort of draw from mythology at its root, uh, to to influence, like at its most basic level, what we think is cool. You know, what we think looks cool is shaped. So I think so inevitably by our history with mythology. You know, that I don't think there's any way to separate them.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, I think there has been some some studies done on that. And I mean, it just goes so far back, you know, if you're looking at religious art, you know, that is mythology. You know, for some people it's not mythology, but those are stories that have been passed down, that have rules to them, and, you know, their own laws. And that was, you know, some of the earliest art. Yeah, I mean, I think there was just a natural progression, you know, of that. And I don't think there was any, I mean, yeah, I don't think, like Melissa said, I don't think you can separate it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the sort of the very seeds of imaginative realism lie in religious art throughout the ages. And you know, I think we are very much sort of standing on the shoulders of those giants, you know,
Yeah.
when we
Yeah.
make our fictional worlds.
Right. And then when you start diving into, you know, like the pre-Raphaelites, I mean, that is fantasy art. Like, so much of it is just straight fantasy art. There's witches, and I mean, yeah. I mean, some of it is, it's no different. It's the same themes. We're just exploring different ways of expressing them.
Yeah.
I think one of the best sci-fi paintings of sort of the the early world is the Hieronymus Bosch trip of purgatory and hell.
Yes, yes. This is totally, this is a little tangent, but I've been following, there is a Bosch bot on Twitter, and it is amazing. Yeah. If you want to get a little taste of Bosch every day in your life, there is a bot for that. And it just feeds little pieces of his artwork throughout the day. It's really awesome.
And what was that, the 1400s? Is that right?
I think so. I kind of want to say that. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could look it up, but I'm not going to. I'll look it up after, and I'll leave it in the comments in the form of a disgruntled congoer.
Yeah, somebody's going to ask. Somebody's going to watch this later and be like, these guys aren't artists. They don't even know when Bosch was painting.
We're artists. We're lucky we got out of bed for this.
Yeah, I had to put some nice clothes on.
Yeah.
I put nice clothes on. It's a concert. I don't know if you can see it. It's a reference.
Yeah, I put on nice clothes. This shirt only has a little bit of paint on it, so it's still a nice one.
See, this is just like a real panel. You know, we would go on tangents like this. Oh, that's good.
So which do you think came first then? Do you think that the stories came first, or do you think that the images came first?
Stories. I mean, that's what I think. I think the stories came first because, you know, somebody saw lightning strike the ground. You know, they saw it split a tree in half, and they thought, oh my gosh, what did that? Where did that come from? And they, you know, started, you know, creating stories. And that might have even been happening before we even had, you know, language, speech. Because, you know, brains were already developed enough for speech. There was just one little bone that was missing. You know, as far as like brain size goes. I've got a whole book on my shelf over there on cognitive anthropology. It was one of my favorite classes ever. But it is true. Looking at those brains of early humans, um, they probably were capable of the same thought processes, but they might not have had speech. So how did they communicate? I mean, I think stories were still told, but just in a different way. And maybe that's where it began. To be able to tell the story, they had to create a picture. But the stories were there. Whatever sparked the stories, whether it was a flood or a strike of lightning, or a comet in the sky. Yeah, I think the story had to be born in our minds, in our hearts, and then we found ways of sharing it, not just with language and writing, but with pictures and yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, because it's like, I mean, in one sense, it's sort of a chicken egg pondering question that we will probably never really know for certain. But to me, it seems like the idea would have to be born in someone's head before they would set forth to draw the picture or make the mark or the symbol. Even like cave paintings, like why would you those drawings on the wall? You have to have an initial impulse. There has to be a reason before someone does the thing. It has to be within you, and that thing that is within you is the question that begins the story.
Yeah.
And I think all stories begin with a question.
Yeah.
All narratives.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I do kind of wonder if maybe cave paintings are like, are either of you familiar with like the hobo codes?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. I think
Okay,
that's
wait a minute. I think I am a little bit. Refresh my memory.
So like hobos, like actual train hobos.
Yes. I have heard of this before. Yeah.
They'll make markings on like bridges or concrete barriers or whatever to let people know like this town is hospitable or it's inhospitable, or you can get food if you go that way or whatever. And I kind of wonder sometimes if cave paintings maybe were sort of a like, don't go in this cave because there's something bad in there or something bad happened here. And then maybe that becomes like, oh, well, maybe it's a monster, or maybe there was, maybe it's like all burned inside or something like that. And, that becomes a whole story about like a fire breathing dragon or something like that.
I
Yeah.
kind of love that idea, and it makes me think. They've found in a lot of these caves with paintings ritual objects, and I'm wondering, well, maybe that's how they started doing the rituals here, is because someone encountered something scary, and it made them go, okay, well, let's appease whatever is in the cave, and then we can have a bountiful hunt or whatever.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You guys are fun to talk to.
Sorry, I think there's cooking going on upstairs or something.
I can't hear it.
I should have thought of more questions.
Well, Tiffany.
Well, what about you? I mean, I know that Tiffany, mythology plays a role in
Yeah.
your art.
When I was starting out, it was like it was a good place to get ideas when I ran out of ideas. Now I don't really have time to do that anymore because I'm getting like assignments that I have to do what I'm told to do. So I don't have to do that so much. But when I was trying to make a portfolio and I was trying to like pull things out of thin air in order to just get a lot of paintings done, it's a deep well to pull from. There's so much there and so many different cultures that each have their own vast mythologies that you can I mean, even if you just wanted to paint mermaids, there's like 400 different kinds of mermaids in mythology.
So cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I wonder too, I mean, how much of it is subconscious. I mean, we have this well, we might be creating like a piece for, a client, does it still play a part somewhere in the recesses of our mind, I think it could, just because that well is inside of all these things that we might have, seen in a TV show or read in a book, or, tiny little influences.
Most definitely.
It's also something that you can draw something, and it's really hard sometimes to relate to viewers when you are not like a legendary famous artist. But mythology is something that, if you're careful and you choose some that are really widely known, there will be people who will connect to that, just because they recognized it instantly, and they will keep coming back because they want to see more of that work. So it's kind of a quick way to build that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of like the fanfic of the ancient world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, all of that is really, I mean, Norse art is fan art.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, it's maybe one of like the oldest, but it is, and a lot of that art. I mean, that's why it identifies as well with so many people, because people know it well. They can relate to it, and it's the same thing with current fan art.
Oh yeah.
You're creating something that a group of people all identify with. And there's a lot of power in that, whether it's, whether you're pulling on Norse mythology or Hannibal art. It's something people identify with. So if you can tap into that, yeah.
And it's something I not to derail into the whole fan art debate, but I wonder if sort of human beings in general are sort of predisposed to making fan art. You know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
like it seems like such a natural impulse, and I see it everywhere, not just in like licensed product like Spider-Man fan art or
Right.
stuff like that, but like I follow a pair of violinists that make videos about like practicing. And there's fanfic. Their fans make
I
fan
believe
art.
it. I
That's
believe it.
like this
I
is,
believe it.
and
Yeah, you can create fan art and fan fiction of almost anything, and in a way, it is its own mythology.
yes,
Um,
I think it's modern mythology. I think we are
yeah.
see and want and hold on to mythology and celebrate
Yes.
that in our own way.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's the same thing. It's a continuation of basically a story that you might see with like these violinists, and it sparks an idea, and it grows and grows and grows and grows.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah, that was actually kind of a cool twist. I had never really, I mean, I've thought about like Norse mythology and fan art, but I hadn't thought about it in a broader sense, that even current fan art of, like well-known IPs is a continuation of a story,
Oh yeah,
of a
right,
mythology. I mean, those are stories. It's not real.
right.
It's fiction. So yeah, that's interesting. I bet somebody's done a thesis on it.
Like we have. Ooh, gonna scour the web now.
Yeah, I kind of think that, people are predisposed to make fan art or fan fiction just because, I mean, part of creating stuff is wanting to share an experience, or wanting to maybe process it in a different way or communicate about it in a different way. So I don't really think it's that surprising that almost everybody is making fan art, whether or not they realize that that's what they're doing.
Yes.
Whether they're influenced by music or books
Right.
or TV shows or like ancient poems or whatever, it's all just kind of reprocessing an experience and
Yeah.
putting it out there for other people, or maybe not even putting it out there, but
And
people are
that's
just
what we do. That's what humans do.
Mhm.
You know, we take what is in our immediate world, our bubble, and we process it and create something more and new, and it grows.
And I put it out there. It's kind of like asking, hey, is there anybody else out there that's like me? You know, I mean, I think you're sort of looking for your tribe.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Hmm.
So.
Do either of you ever actually like just pull a whole like motif out of mythological art?
I mean, like, you know, I've done tarot cards and stuff, and I think you're like sort of supposed to pull, you know, whole cloth symbols out of the established tarot symbols. Otherwise, people get mad at you, unless you're doing an oracle deck, in which case they can't get mad at you, haha, because it's not a tarot deck, it's an oracle deck.
Oh my god. It's true though, like the rules are totally different as far as tarot and oracle go. But I don't know. I don't know if I've ever I'm trying to think about that, if I've ever pulled something like directly. I don't know. I tend to expand stuff. I like creating something new. So, you know, there might be elements, but I tend to do my own thing. My brain is just always on fire, pretty much. it's
Awesome.
it's just
Okay.
constant. It is a constant flow of ideas. I never don't have an idea, which is good and bad.
You're like that guy in the first Sandman story, writing on the wall with his fingertips in blood, because the constant flow of ideas.
Oh, yeah, maybe a little. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I like my imagination is just always going. I mean, I can get a painting idea walking in my mailbox. Um, I am constantly processing everything that I'm seeing and coming in. And I'm a very visual person. I have almost a photographic memory. Um, so, yeah, I don't know. I like expanding. And I like the idea of expanding ideas. Um, you know, if I have to close myself in, I actually find that very difficult. Um, yeah.
We are the opposite in that way, because I find that if I am limited, it helps me focus my stupid ADHD brain. And, and it's like those limitations become a game that I'm playing, and
Interesting.
can help me greatly. And, you know, it's okay. So,
Yeah, see, I mean, it's yeah, for me, if I'm given something where, okay, you are painting this exact myth, I'm going to have a hard time not wanting to put my own spin on it. And for me, the limitations become like a barrier, and my brain fights it. My brain is like, no, you can't make me.
yeah.
You know, I can be very stubborn that way.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
But as far as like client work goes, though, I'm very good at sneaking things in. I'm very good at putting my own twist on things, but following the brief and making it work. So I find ways around those like limitations, because there are limitations. I mean, when you're working from a brief and it has to be X, Y, and Z, I'm like, okay, but I'm gonna also do this, and and make it my own. I make it my own, basically.
Sometimes I have like an utter lack of self-awareness in that regard, because like I will do something and I will go, oh God, this is so over the top, obviously this exact mythological trope, and like my spouse will see it and goes, what the hell is this? I don't even, and I was like, it's obviously blah blah blah, and he was like, no one knows that except you. And like I did this thing for like a t-shirt contest of this like well-known fandom, and this convention had a t-shirt contest, and I pulled what I thought was such a brilliant obvious reference from the text of this book, and like everybody was like, that's really pretty, but what's it of? And I was like,
Aww.
on page 88, right.
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess that's I have like a textual memory, I suppose, but just,
That's funny. But that's what, like, for instance, between you and I, that's what makes, and even Tiffany, that's what makes our art unique to us.
right.
Is how we process the world around us and the stories and everything else. Because everybody processes what they see and feel and hear and read differently. So
Very true. It enriches all of us when we talk about stuff, because everyone's internal myths are different.
yeah, definitely.
When you do an illustration and it's going to be mythology based, do you look at other people's paintings, or do you base it on like what you've read?
I'll start. I definitely look at other people's paintings, because I don't want to accidentally do something exactly the same.
Or if we do like sometimes I will do that, and it will be sort of like a visual pun, saying, oh, haha, this is this particular statue of Athena that's come to life or something.
Right. Or if I have an idea and it ends up being, because I mean this does happen, exactly the same as somebody else's idea that they painted, I'll rearrange it in my head. I'll morph it. But yeah, I mean, because one, I guess there is a little bit of insecurity there. Like, I don't want this person thinking like I'm copying their work. And I don't actually tend to look at a lot of art. And that's another thing that's that I know is just a me brain. I know a lot of artists enjoy looking at all the art in their feed. I don't.
I don't either.
No, I don't. In fact, I actually find it extremely detrimental to my creativity, because there's just too much stimuli. It's just too much. So I tend to, this is like so freaking evil. I tend to just like unfollow and mute a lot of artists. Yeah, I'm going to be, the truth is coming out. No.
Wow.
I don't do that with my friends, and like, especially like people that I work with, especially in the Southeast.
Oh, yeah.
But a lot of other people, yeah, I can't have them. I just can't have that in my feed constantly. I can't. Now, I'll go and look at their pages individually, like their Facebook or their Instagram, and kind of see what they're up to, But it also depends on how they're using social media. I mean, some people, it's only their art, that's it. Which is fine. But yeah, I can't have all that coming into my brain.
Same. It gets in your head, right? And like with me, I'm like, oh, should I be painting things this way, or should I be using these two colors now? What should I? What's that? Should I be shooting from this angle? No.
Well, I read an article, and I wish I still had it. I actually emailed it to you, Melissa, but this was like 2-3 years ago, and it talked about how artists need to disconnect.
Yes, I love that.
They need the quiet and the solitude of their studio without external stimuli to be able to do what they do, to give birth to something. And I mean, that might not be true for everybody, but I know for me, it's very true. So while, okay, if I get a client work and it's very specific, I might do like a search and see, okay, has anybody else painted this? Because I wouldn't know necessarily, since I'm not looking at a lot of art every day, Monday through Friday. Just to make sure, because I don't want to copy somebody. And if they have, if my idea is similar, then, I try to just, let my brain do its thing and evolve it a little bit more so that it's not the same. But yeah, too much stimuli. And we get so much stimuli. I mean, it's not just art in our feeds. It's everything, and I find that really disrupts my internal mythology. Let's see, I'll bring it back.
Back in.
I'm slick. I know it.
I remember when I was in, I went to art school initially, and I really didn't like it. And I ended up changing to a different school, and they had me do a placement test because I had a GED and I never finished high school or took an ACT or any of that stuff. So I ended up testing really, really well for English, and I started taking English classes instead of art classes. And one of them was about advertising. And this was like almost 15 years ago. Your average American at that point in time was consuming 10,000 advertisements a day, whether or not, like, from billboards, newspapers, TV commercials, radio ads, ads on packaging for food, whatever.
Yeah.
And it was like, if you actually stopped and counted how many times you saw like a product placement somewhere,
Wow.
how would you even begin to even keep track of that? So it definitely makes sense to me that people need to, like, artists need to unplug, but I think most people probably need to unplug and disconnect a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure it's way more than 10,000 now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was one of the things that I enjoyed the most about conventions. As if they're in the past. They're not in the past. They are coming back. But I'm in my studio most of the time working, and occasionally, like I said, I'll go and see what people are doing. But for the most part, I'm in my studio doing what I'm doing, and going to conventions was an opportunity to see all the art and see it face to face, not on a computer screen, which, I find far more enjoyable. But yeah, I mean, gosh, I can only imagine. Yeah, all the stuff that we are just inundated with. Yeah. And there's so many artists, so many. There are far more artists outside of our little bubble of science fiction and fantasy. And the bubble is even larger than that. I mean, you have illustration for, like, books, you have gaming, product illustration. I mean, you know, it expands and it expands and it expands. Yeah.
I think it's interesting that there is so many advertising things out there and there's so much advertisement art, but not a lot of it actually has any mythological symbolism or imagery in it, which is kind of shocking to me because almost everything that we do and almost everything you see at a fantasy or sci-fi convention has that imagery embedded in it or behind it or influencing it or informing it in some way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's easy to forget maybe that there is a bigger world. And not, you know, as far as like art goes. Because, you know, art is a part of almost everything. You know, packaging, advertising, you know, the media. But not all of it is the art that our circles kind of move in.
Yeah. At the same time, though, I think a lot of the really successful advertising campaigns do actually incorporate mythology, like the Geico caveman commercials, and there's been like some like Bigfoot kind of ads that have done really well, and
Yeah.
I know in other countries there's like more like Nordic mythology that performs well on their advertisements. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, if you're smart, that is what people are going to connect with. And if you
Yeah.
can find a way to work it into even just, you know, yeah, your commercial for your cereal. Yeah.
Well, I guess we could wrap it up now.
Yeah. Normally, this is where we would like, you know, take questions.
Yeah. Um,
We're not taking any questions.
Well, people can always, you know, email us or reach out on social media. And I'm assuming there's probably going to be a Discord, maybe, I don't know, for LibertyCon, and, you know, we'll be in there to chat with people. So.
You can also reach out to us. You can reach me at spellboundbrush.com. And do you guys want to give your website addresses?
Yeah, I'm at amandamakepeace.com.
And I'm at melissagay.com. And I will only be on the Discord if forced. So, you know. Discord. I have nothing against Discord. I have like a lot of things against like me being on too many social medias, and I'm so at saturation. So if I'm not there, just like anyone take it personally.
I'll speak on Melissa's behalf. No.
Yes, you probably could. I'm sure you could probably word for word predict what I'm gonna say.
Oh my gosh.
Discord with anyone that tries to get me to come on to Discord.
Oh, that's great.
I'll come on Discord.
Well, thank you for being in this panel with me.
Yeah.
We love you, Tiffany.
We do. This was fun. This was fun.
Thank you. I love you both.
Everyone from
Yes.
across.
Yeah.
So this looks like I'm trying to choke you, but I'm not.
Yeah. Or we're like going to be vampires, just lay back in our graves. This is what the pandemic has done to us.
Turned us into vampires. I mean.